Now, the Bank of England has warned that Britain faces a 2-year recession in the aftermath of the economic turmoil of this year and, of course, the pandemic. But what would a recession mean for ordinary families and business? And can the government alleviate the current mess? These are the questions on many people's minds as the costs of essentials and goods increases and the global economy still recovers, of course, from lockdowns and the war in Ukraine. Well, with me now is Vicky Pryce, Chief Economic Advisor for the Centre for Economic and Business Research. Vicky, I thank you for your time. Could you just explain to our viewers what these Bank of England forecasts actually mean? And are you on the same page as them? Are you as pessimistic, Vicky, as the bank is perhaps being?
Well, what the Bank of England is forecasting is that we're going to probably have negative growth for the rest of this year. So if you just look from the middle of this year onwards to the end of this year, probably a decline, not a very big one, under 1%. But then that slowdown that we're already experiencing, possibly a recession, will carry on for a couple of years. And that is unprecedented in terms of the length that they expect this recession to last. It's not going to be very deep, according to them. The real worry is that when we get out of it, we're still not going to be growing very fast at all. So we're not going back to any serious growth. And if you just think about the Liz Truss period, when we were talking about growth is the answer to the debt issues, but it's not going to be, because that growth is going to be very anemic. We're still talking about growth of perhaps not more than 1% for a number of years to come after that.
Did Liz Truss not have it right then? Was she not right to recognise that actually economic growth is what's going to get her out of this mess?
She's right about that completely, in the sense that it's growth we need. The real problem is, how do you get it? You don't necessarily get it by just cutting taxes, especially at a time when inflation is so high. So what you need, of course, is an environment, a global environment, which is more sort of looking at expanding rather than contracting, which is where we are now. And there is an imminent global recession staring us in the face. And in that environment, you can't really grow. But there are a number of things that could happen. So the war could finish. For example, we could see some of the price declines that we've already witnessed in gas prices, in energy prices more generally, particularly oil. That's coming down, has been coming down. Food prices have been declining for the last 6 months. The international food prices, not what the consumer in the UK is paying, of course, because some of the previous increases are still coming through the system. But overall, there could be some better environment coming through. But at the moment, what we're doing in the UK, certainly, which is going to inhibit growth, is that we're both raising taxes, probably, and we expect to hear more on November the 17th, and possibly cutting public spending, but also we're increasing interest rates at the same time. So it's a cut environment we are right in at present, and that's not going to provide any growth at all.
Yeah, and Vicky, as you will know by now, former Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, he actually blamed Brexit for some of the economic difficulties we're currently facing. Do you think that's fair?
I think up to a point we have seen that inflation in the UK has tended to be higher because we had supply constraints which were worse because of Brexit than would otherwise have been the case. And also, of course, we've had quite a lot of pressure on wages because there have been quite substantial staff shortages that we've seen in many occupations. So if you add those two and the fact that we have also lost quite a lot of our trade intensity, so we're not actually trading as much with the EU, and strangely, we're not trading as much with the world as we did before, then Brexit could be partly to blame for that. But there are, of course, other reasons. The international factors that I mentioned earlier, the war in Ukraine, rise in prices that we have seen, and the slowdown everywhere, really. Sort of gas supplies restricted in Europe. There's probably going to be some rationing. It's going to affect us as well, without any doubt.
Absolutely. I think Brexit sort of seems like it was a million years ago now, Vicky, given all that's happened since then. But Vicky Pryce, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. Chief Economic Advisor for the Centre for Economic and Business Research. I thank you for your time as ever. That's Vicky Pryce there.